What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you. So another one that I had on my radar, and this one's going to be a little bit different because this might not necessarily be a metal album, but fuck yeah, I wanted to review it because actually John and I reviewed their last album kind of on a whim, and we were hooked. So today I'm going to be going over the newest album by Hällas, Isle of Wisdom. This comes out on the 8th of April on Napalm Records. It actually comes out on another label too, but I forgot the name of it, but we'll just go with Napalm Records. This band formed in 2011 in Sweden. This is their third full-length overall, and this is some 70s prog-loving retro awesomeness. I mean, sound-wise, there's a lot of 70s, there's a bit of early 80s, there's maybe even some late 60s in here, but none of it is necessarily metal, but maybe at the time, if this came out during that era, it might have been called metal, quote unquote, because it does get kind of heavy, but not really. That is definitely not the main mode of this band. These guys love old school prog rock, and man, do they just nail the sound. Again, when John and I reviewed their last album, we were kind of caught off guard because we really didn't know what to expect, and then listening to it was like, man, this reminds me of a lot of really classic shit. And once again, these guys are back to deliver pretty much that same feel, but honestly, possibly even better. So this album opens up with Birth/Into Darkness, and it opens up with these waves of Moog synthesizer sounds, the same kind of sounds that pissed off a lot of Blood Incantation fans with their last album, but this is not a death metal band doing a ambient album that they literally warned everyone about. This is a band that literally their sound is perfectly fitting with these Moog synthesizers coming in, and then you get these big kind of classic rock riffs and lush soundscapes and prog rock song building. The synths really lead the way on most of this album, and it's really cool because you get, again, those spacey sort of, Moog synths. You get a lot of Hammond organ stuff. It's pretty much like this perfect blend of Rick Wakeman and John Lord just kind of working together on a massive keyboard while navigating the landscapes of every Yes album cover and ingesting a ton of hallucinogens just to make the trip more interesting and colorful, as if they needed to make it more colorful than those album covers. Everything about this song is kind of a build. It builds up to like a more sort of intense kind of galloping rock beat, which you get a lot of that. There's definitely a lot of like Uriah Heep, Blue Oyster Cults, I would even say Thin Lizzy at times too, but a lot of it is, again, in that prog spaciness with Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, though not as like overboard. And even some classic Russian Gentle Giant thrown in there because, well, I mean, Gentle Giant kind of known for their interesting vocal harmonies. There's a lot of that too. Now, the frontman has a very interesting voice. It's very raspy, but very tuneful. And he creates these very interesting melodies. Like, they're not the most traditional melodies, but when you add a lot of harmonies to them, they kind of turn into these big rockers. And it's really cool to hear the balance of just proggy kind of otherworldliness compared to like the more grounded, straightforward rockers on here. Songs like Earl's Theme kind of hark back to like early Scorpions. It has a straightforward sort of stomping beat. The guitars kind of take the forefront where the synths are just accents, and it just delivers these giant classic rock hooks. But it's a little spacey and weird, so you get a little bit of that, early krautrock in there too. And then Illusion's Gate has this fun galloping rhythm that's, again, kind of like Thin Lizzy, but like kind of close to early Iron Maiden or like Angel Witch. Like, it has a little bit of that early heavy metal sound to it, though maybe dial down the heavy part, I guess, because again, it's not really very heavy, but at the same time, there's like this triumphant feel. It's galloping, it's very epic, and the fucking choruses on it are just gorgeous. And while a lot of these songs sort of just navigate the cosmos and fucking, just go all throughout space to find weird sounds and weird movements and speak to alien cultures and I don't know, whatever the fuck they're talking about. There are songs that remain more straightforward rockers like Illusion's Gate. I think that one just kind of stays the course. It doesn't really deviate much from the, straightforward rocker vibe. It doesn't have like a wild, lavish bridge or anything like that, or really any part where, one thing kind of goes off into an odd transition. It kind of just sticks to it and delivers just a flat out cool classic rock hook. Meanwhile, songs like The Inner Chamber kind of go all over the place. It opens up in almost like a Jethro Tull, minstrel, telling a story sort of vibe. It kind of reminded me a lot of the Rankin Bass, The Hobbit movie from like way fucking back, actually, probably during the time where this would have been the type of music out. But the song really doesn't get heavier until the end, and it's interesting to hear like the songwriting dynamics where they are writing in movements. And it's really interesting because it's a whole bunch of separate, smaller songs that kind of fit into one song. It's a very interesting song with, I guess, sort of a narrative. I didn't try following the lyrics very much because I was thinking about the Hobbit movie, but it was a really cool song. And also I was kind of caught up in terms of the feel of the album. Like the production here is analog as fuck. This sounds old school. This sounds like it was recorded during the time that a lot of this music was very popular. Like it just has the sound of like Yes albums and Rush albums. It's a little bit fuzzy, definitely warm as hell, and again, mixed very well. My only complaint would maybe be the vocals are occasionally a little too out front. But the thing I love about their sound, and it's kind of across the board on this, is where it is just straightforward rock sometimes, like, you know, very down to earth, very riff centric, very harmony centric. It can switch gears to like the absolute spacey stuff in an instant, and somehow it all comes together very well. Because this isn't just, you know, like weird Hawkwind-like spaciness all the time. It's definitely centered on a lot of classic rock hooks, and where they intermingle, I think, is the best. Gallivants of Space is probably the best example of this because it starts off as a flat-out rocker with one of the best riffs on the album. It is instantly catchy. And I like the fact that the opening riff is essentially the chorus riff, and then it goes into the verse riff, big, giant chorus, and it just kind of rocks out until it takes this really interesting shift towards the middle and has this cool, spacey, proggy bridge. And it kind of just goes all over the place for a little bit. And it's really fucking good, but then it brings you right back to those solid rock riffs and closes out on that. And that, for me, was a solid mix of kind of both worlds of this album. Another good example is the song Stygian Depths. Literally, as soon as the song started, I kind of just thought of Thin Lizzy's Emerald, which is up there with one of my favorite songs ever. Except this was like Emerald in space. Like, you know, it wasn't down from the Glen, it was down from space. And the Martian men instead of the Marching Men with their ray guns and their flying saucers. I don't know, I'm not trying to rewrite that song because it's already fucking perfect. But this song kind of has that same sort of rhythm, that same sort of driving punch to it, and the riffs, again, great. The guitar work on here, I mean, often I feel like sometimes it is overshadowed by a lot of the cool synth work because the synth work is very creative on here, very imaginative. But the guitars are excellent on here, and that warm sort of fuzzy tone that they have, I don't know, it just kind of gets me in my classic rock feels on every fucking track. And like any good prog album, I think this album is really good at these fun, strange, unexpected turns. Towards the end of Stygian Depths, there's like a D-beat section that just gets kind of shreddy, like a nice long lead bridge for a Deep Purple song. Gallivants of Space has a very like kind of pop rock section that is akin to like Cheap Trick. And the last track, The Wind Carries the Word, after you get the big rocking opening and just like awesome riffs and melodies everywhere, there's a, I don't know, very Steely Dan-ish sort of break in the middle before it keeps building up into the next big riffy moment. I really like that. I didn't see a lot of these turns coming, and they're transitioned beautifully. Like, it's just buttery smooth across the board, and that makes this whole album kind of feel like a bit of a journey. And I mean, it's a prog band. It should be a fucking journey. And there's even a lot of stuff on here that I would say is kind of comparable to more modern Opeth. I mean, modern Opeth is still maybe a bit heavier, at least with the last album, but I mean, Pale Communion and Heritage, kind of close to this. And honestly, I probably prefer this over those albums. I'm just not a huge fan of those, but you know, again, my expectations for this band are a lot different. And as for any negatives, I really don't have many. The only negative I have is more or less a nitpick. The song The Inner Chamber is actually, surprisingly, I think it should be longer. Honestly, some of the transitions, it feels like a lot of condensed ideas. I think if the transitions had more room to breathe, like the next part went on for like another measure and they did some more stuff within there and then transitioned. Like, that is probably the most proggy song on here in terms of just a more outlandish song structure. But I just feel like it could have been like over 10 minutes and the song is 6 minutes and 40 seconds. So it feels just like a little too condensed for as grand as it possibly could be. But that is about it. Everything else on this album, I fucking loved. Now, honestly, a lot of it has to do with growing up with this kind of music. My mom played a lot of Yes albums, a lot of Rush, lots of Uriah Heep and Jethro Tull. So like this is part of like my most early musical memories is hearing stuff like this. And well, I mean, it made a lasting impression because I'm going to give this 4.5 stars. I think this is an absolutely fantastic listen. Definitely not metal, like barely metal at all. It's heavy, but like rock heavy. But man, the songwriting is absolutely amazing. I love the fact that as progressive and strange as they get, they know how to get back to the hook, and the hooks are so damn good on here. Great vocal hooks, great lead melodies. The synth work is fucking out of this world. And as spacey and as weird as it gets, it comes right back down to earth to deliver some just absolutely infectious melodies almost on every fucking track. If you are a giant prog rock fan, especially like, again, 70s prog rock, there's no reason why you would not love this. This is absolutely fantastic songwriting. It is very retro, but it still feels very fresh and fun. And I mean, it's just killer songwriting. And honestly, that's kind of the thing I look for in classic prog rock. I want to hear just some really cool, lavish songs that are equal parts spacey and weird and unbelievably catchy, and this band fucking nailed it. I love their last one. I think this one's even more of an improvement. I have not heard their first one yet, but believe me, I'm going to be trying to find that one. And honestly, this is a good jumping on point right here in terms of this band. This is just such a great album, and honestly, just work your way back. You're going to find more killer jams. But yeah, I recommend this one for all you giant prog nerds out there. Go check this one out. You're probably going to love it. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you would like to help us out there will be a link down below, and there will also be a link down there for thrallsofmetal.com, just in case you would like to get one of our cool shirts. Again, thank you all. It has been so much fucking fun doing this. We love the whole metal community. Well, I mean, for this video, not necessarily the most metal community, but I know metalheads out there will probably like this shit too. But yeah, we love doing this, and we look forward to doing more. Again, I'm going to be taking a bit of a break for a while. Going to go on vacation, go hit up some record stores, get drunk on frozen drinks, eat my weight in seafood. It's going to be a fucking blast. But I look forward to coming back at least for a while before we go to MDF and slinging out some more reviews, going through all the shit I picked up, and just talking to you guys once again. But yeah, with that, I thank you all once again, and we will catch you later.